Shlomo from to Lebanon, Shlomo from Mount Lebanon. What are the traces the Maronites have left all over Lebanon? When they carved their Syriac letters on churches, on monasteries, and in the native rock. In our epigraphical campaign across Lebanon, we have gathered a set of 100 inscriptions that we categorized in 4 groups. Last episode, we presented 2 of them. Today, we will see the 2 others. First, the group that assembles epigraphs called tetragonos in Syriac, meaning squares. In these epigraphs, the inscription turns according to 4 successive directions, generating a square. St. George Monastery in Niamey has several inscriptions in Syriac letters. One of them is above the sacristy's entrance. It is a rose window inscribed in a square, and this square is generated by the inscription that covers all 4 sides. The square, designed by the inscription of Marshallita in Gosta, is even more interesting. If we look carefully at this epigraph dated 1628, we notice the following. The first part of the text occupies the entire length at the top. The second part, on the left, occupies vertically only 2/3 of the height. The third part, at the bottom, also covers 2/3 of the length. This leaves the fourth part with only half the height on the right side. Why didn't the sculptor provide exactly 2/3 for each side, making them equal? Why is the first part longer and the last part shorter than the others? Is it simply negligence? Is it simply coincidence? Here is a similar case from 1656 in St. Anthony of Daraoun. We observe the same singularity. Full length on the top, 2/3 on the left side, 2/3 on the bottom, and half height on the right side. It is not possible to consider negligence anymore, nor coincidence. It was possible to have all 4 sides equal by making use of the tetrascallion, meaning the swastika shape. This swastika was very common since antiquity, like in Greek, Roman, and Byzantine mosaics. This simple design allows us to obtain 4 equal sides. It was widespread across Lebanon, as seen in this Byzantine mosaic from the coastal area south of Beirut, displayed today at the National Museum. But let us leave now Lebanon to reach another Syriac area. And let us leave the 16th century to go back to the Middle Ages. Here is the chair of Ben Nawi, presented by epigraphist Chabot. Again, it shows a tetragonos, meaning a square, and a cross in the center, just like in Gosta and Daraoun. And once more, the text on the top uses the entire length, whereas the text to the right occupies only half of the height. 2 different eras and 2 different areas, and yet the same design. If there is no coincidence, if this is intentional, what is the purpose? Probably the tetrascallion or swastika design make it difficult to designate the beginning of the text because all sides are equal. By managing different dimensions for each side, the sculptor defines the beginning and the end of the text. After watching this collection of tetragonos inscriptions, meaning squarish, here is the 4th and last group of epigraphs, the slivoio, from slivo, meaning the cross. Our journey starts in Ehden, in the Middle Ages, in the convent of Saints Sergius and Bacchus. The text is on the upper and lower part of the marble slab, but more to the center. An inscription is directly related to the cross. It is the Psalm 44:5 of King David. It says, Boch en Dakar la belt vovain. Through you we push back our enemies. This psalm is completely part of the slivo, the cross, that generates the entire composition. That is why we will call this concept slivoio. The same thing is repeated in 1276 in Our Lady of Elige. The text is suddenly interrupted by the Psalm 44:5 that became inseparable from the cross. So the two vertical inscriptions in the center are totally independent from the text. We read in them, Boch en Dakar la belt vovain, ou metu le shmoch en douche el sonain. Through you we push back our enemies, through your name we trample our foes. The rest of the text is about the restoration of the monastery. In the 18th century, in Mardumet Church in Zug, the Psalm 44:5 of King David is on the lintel, on both sides of the cross. Still in the 18th century, in Saint Elias of Reita, we find a very interesting use of the Psalm 44:5. On one side of the entrance lintel, a cross is surrounded by the inscription in its Syriac version. To the other end of the lintel, the same cross, the same Certoscript, and the same Psalm 44:5, but in Gershuni this time. It is the Arabic translation of King David's psalm, written in Syriac letters. In the 19th century, Our Lady of Sherfi provides another interesting display of Psalm 44:5 of King David. On its south entrance, the cross of the lintel shows the first half of the psalm, Boch Dakar la belt vovain. Through you we push back our enemies. And on the north entrance, another cross gives the second half of the psalm, Umetu le shmoch en douche el sonain, and through your name we trample our foes. As usual, architecture, art, sculpture, and inscriptions in Lebanon are always related to Syriac manuscripts. Here are two crosses on parchment, and below them two crosses in stone found in Tur Abdin. All of them present the Psalm 44:5 of King David, sometimes vertically, sometimes diagonally. There is a total correlation between the sign of the cross and the verse of the psalm. What we have seen are the four groups showing the types of epigraphs. The historical group, the gliloio or circular, the tetragonos or square, and the slivoio or cross-type epigraphs. In each group, the composition, the design, and the content show a continuous tradition that covers different areas and several eras. All this consistency informs us about the existence of a tradition that we cannot ignore any longer. There is a treasure of forms, of signs, of expressions and messages that defines an artistic and theological culture. In the next episodes, we will develop these subjects to unveil the symbolic message that they carry, as well as their spiritual significance. Shlomo from Tur Lebanon. Shlomo from Mount Lebanon.